What's going on, everybody? C4 here, and welcome back to the 32-team 7-round mock draft series, where today we're going to be taking a look at the team that holds the 26th overall pick in the first round, as well as a bunch of picks in this entire draft. Very busy draft, tough mock draft for us to try to pick where they're going to probably have to double up at talent at some point. But we're going to be taking a look here at the Indianapolis Colts. And, I guess the one thing that kind of helps this mock draft with all these picks is that they were kind of passive in free agency. Chris Ballard's one of the better young GMs in football, did an exceptional job in last year's draft, but I thought they could have been a little bit more active, get a couple stars, get a couple guys that can help them make that playoff push, when in reality they pretty much just walked away out of free agency, retaining Clayton Gaithers. He's a solid safety, and bringing in Justin Houston. That's a nice veteran presence, but will he be able to translate to that 4-3 scheme? There's some question marks there. And then they brought in Devin Funchess on what is in reality, not a great contract for a player that has been incredibly underwhelming in his career with the Carolina Panthers. So to go with that, lots of holes that I think we can try to fill in a draft. And this is a tough one because I'm competing against a guy that had an exceptional draft last year, getting Quentin Nelson. I mean, I don't know how much we can pat him on the back for getting Quentin Nelson. Quentin Nelson was regarded as like the second best player, maybe even the best player, along with Saquon Barkley. So, I mean, he was as expected. But he did get Braden Smith in the second round, and I was higher on Braden Smith than most, so I was happy to see him get drafted then, and he was very, very good. They also got Tyquan Lewis, looks like a nice rotational piece. Kamoka Ture looks like a nice rotational piece with lots of upside. Darius Leonard, my adopted son, defensive rookie of the year. That was another really, really good value pickup there. And they also got some depth moves I thought was pretty smart, especially Deon Cain out of Clemson, the wide receiver, in the 6th round. So without further ado, let's try and equal the draft they had last year. And at pick 26, I'm selecting A.J. Brown, wide receiver from Ole Miss. He came into last year's college football season as the #1 wide receiver on a lot of people's boards. I actually made the argument that he wasn't even the best wide receiver on Ole Miss, but he had obviously a big-time productive career. He brings great hands, great route running, but the biggest knock against him was, is he going to be pigeonholed as a pure slot wide receiver at the next level because of lack of speed, lack of burst, lack of ability to get separation. And he went to the combine, had a better combine than expected, running a 4.49 40. So I think, he could emerge as wide receiver 2 for the Colts this year, if not slot 1 as a rookie. A lot of comparisons, a lot of similarities between him and Juju Smith-Schuster. You look at A.J. Brown out of Ole Miss, Juju Smith-Schuster out of USC, a lot of similarities to their play style. So, I mean, great value pickup there for the Indianapolis Colts, judging from the fact that A.J. Brown was regarded as a top wide receiver not too far and too long ago, and depending on where you're looking for your draft content, he might still be the wide receiver 1. So at 26, him still being there for the Colts, get more weapons for Andrew Luck is what I can say, and it starts really, really nicely with A.J. Brown. Will we double up at wide receiver? Don't wait very long, because he'll be coming sooner than you expect in this mock draft. So then following up in the 2nd round, where they have 2 second-round picks, first up at 34, I'm selecting Jeffrey Simmons, defensive tackle from Mississippi State. He's a top 15 talent, but he will slip due to a torn ACL, plus some off the field, but the off the field I don't think is that much of a concern. Obviously, it was not a good look, but I'm pretty sure it happened in high school or something like that, and pretty much everyone has kind of stated since he's been able to go to the next level at Mississippi State, he's turned it all around. He's a model player, all this and that, and I feel like he has made the most of his second chance. But I feel like coupled with the injury, it may not be a lock to go in the bottom end of the first round. But when you look at him, I mean, some people are saying right now he could be ready for the playoffs if you draft him, be fully healthy from there. He is a complete defensive tackle versus the run, versus the pass. I mean, he lives in the other team's backfield. A lot of people are trying to compare him to, a Fletcher Cox light style player. And I think someone like Frank Reich, who was around Fletcher Cox, is going to see those similarities and want to bring him there on the defense. I mean, Danico Autry had a breakout year last year, but are you going to gamble on a 1-year wonder potentially and just ignore continuing to try to improve the interior of that defensive line? I don't think so. And I think Jeffrey Simmons at pick 34 is a very smart, long-term thinking pick for Chris Ballard and company. Going to the second round pick at 59, I'm selecting MECOLE Hardman, wide receiver from Georgia. I think in this year's draft class, he is a top 3 deep threat. He has a very high ceiling. Obviously, coming from Georgia, you're not going to get a lot of gaudy numbers because they don't throw the ball particularly well. But he ran a 4.33. He has elite tracking. You put the ball in his hands, he's going to make people miss. He has that special teams ability right away. And I think he's going to be a riser come draft day. Right now, a lot of people have him going as like a a mid-third round pick, maybe slipping into day 3. But I think when more and more teams are going to want to try to get that next potential Tyreek Hill, they see what Tyreek Hill has been able to bring to the Chiefs. I mean, every team's going to want that type of guy. And with T.Y. Hilton getting up there in age a little bit, maybe more so, you can work him slowly from being that outside burner to the inside of the field. Get a little bit more gadgety with him. A guy like MECOLE Hardman's going to learn a lot from a T.Y. Hilton because I think there is a lot of untapped potential there. And I think when I look at the Colts right now, he has wide receiver potential as a rookie. I mean, I'm not putting any value in the Devin Funchess signing. Devin Funchess is pretty much a glorified tight end. He's another big body to utilize, which is going to be tough to cover. I mean, we have Devin Funchess, Jack Doyle, and Eric Ebron out there. But, I mean, in terms of what outside speed they need, what outside speed they might, be starting to lose in an aging T.Y. Hilton, you're going to be able to get that right away here in MECOLE Hardman. And while it may kind of feel like a reach right now, I think he's going to be a big-time surprise pick to many in the second round because of how good of a deep threat he truly is. Going into the third round at pick 89, I was selecting MAXX CROSBY, defensive end from Eastern Michigan. Another guy coming off a huge combine, ran a 4.66 in the 40, was top 3 in like all the agility drills. A positive for him coming in was he already had very good technique. He had good hand movement, good hand placement, good pass rushing moves. And the fact that you're able to couple that with a very good athletic profile and athletic showing at the combine, he is going to be a big riser. And I think a lock for at some point in that third round. He had a productive career at Eastern Michigan. Maybe you could consider level of competition, but in 2 years, 120 tackles, 35 tackles for loss, and 18 sacks. And when I look currently at the Colts landscape, I think he's defensive end 4 of a very healthy defensive edge rotation between Tyquan Lewis, Kamoko Toure, and Jabal Sheard. You throw him in there and get a lot of rotational pressure. I mean, I can kind of view the Colts like I view the Eagles because that's kind of how Frank Reich is molding his team. And the Philadelphia Eagles rotate their defensive line every other snap, it feels like. And with Jabal Sheard, what's his longevity? How many more years does he have for the Colts? It's probably better to start thinking about who could be his potential replacement for that rotation. I think that will be a guy that MAXX CROSBY could very well be for the Indianapolis Colts. Moving into the fourth round, they have 2 fourth-round picks. First up at 129, I'm selecting BENZSCHAWEL, offensive guard from Wisconsin. He's the type of player that can play guard and or tackle. He's built like a tackle. He's very similar. I'm getting very similar vibes between him and Braden Smith. I think Braden Smith is a lot more powerful. Braden Smith put up like 30-some plus reps on the bench press. But in terms of play style, very similar. BENZSCHAWEL was a first-team All-American last year, blocking for Jonathan Taylor, a part of a very good Wisconsin offensive line. So you're getting a very well-coached player. But I'm currently looking at the landscape of the Colts O-line. That right guard spot, Mark Golinski, I think they want to add some competition there. You don't just want to give the spot to him. I think he did get re-signed, but obviously it wasn't a huge investment for the Indianapolis Colts. And I think a guy like BENZSCHAWEL could potentially start right away, challenge for that right guard spot, but ultimately because of that flexibility that he can potentially play guard or tackle, I think he had some flexibility to be that 6th offensive lineman that will dress on game day, to be able to come in and spot duty in case of injury. So there is added value there to get more competition and a guy that can dress and be that 6th tackle in the 4th round. That's nice value. That's a nice utility piece for that offensive line. Going to their second 4th round pick at 135, I'm selecting KENDALL SHEFFIELD, cornerback from Ohio State, which is pretty much typical in today's climate from Ohio State DBs. He brings elite speed to a secondary that I kind of view as a slow secondary. Not a lot of burners there. Pierre Desir, Clayton Gaylors, Malik Hooker, Kenny Moore, Quincy Wilson, Nate Hairston. Not a lot of speed. Jalen Collins, if he can get his career, not a lot of speed, not a lot of burners. So KENDALL SHEFFIELD brings a dimension they don't currently have. Sure, he is a project-ish type player. Like, he's not nearly in the same category or as ready as like a Garyon Conley or Marshawn Lattimore, but there is some potential there. Get a lot of reps. I think he could compete for nickel reps as a rookie. I mean, I would assume Kenny Moore or Nate Hairston will be competing for that starting nickel gig. But Sheffield brings that elite speed that they don't really have right now on that defense. I think when you get a pick like KENDALL SHEFFIELD here in the 4th round, you're thinking more so of 2020. Maybe get a little bit more clarity in 2020. Have him develop right now with a chance, because of his speed and his playmaking ability, to get some early snaps as a rookie, but more so view it as a developmental year, and for 2020 for him to maybe emerge as a starter in that secondary. Going into the 5th round at 164, I have them selecting Max Scharping, offensive tackle from Northern Illinois. He's been a Pro Football Focus darling for the last 3 years. His best year was in 2017, so not last year, but 2 years ago, where he had a 99.2 pass block grade, which is absurd. And I'm starting to look at the Colts. Where can they get younger? And you know, Anthony Costanzo is one of their veterans, but he's getting up there in age a little bit, kind of expensive. So you could start to look at, and plan and build around a potential replacement here. And a guy like Max Scharping. And a lot of scouts actually have Scharping having guard potential. So again, you know, trying to solve that right guard spot. Maybe BENZSCHAWEL emerges as your swing tackle, and a guy like Max Scharping could surprise a lot and get that right guard spot. So again, doubling up on competition to make and solidify this Colts offensive line is one of the best in the National Football League and youngest in the National Football League. They can do so by bringing in 2 talented guys that can compete for right guard, or if you can get BENZSCHAWEL to eventually, you know, establish himself as that right guard, a guy like Max Scharping in the 5th round could emerge as a younger option than Anthony Costanzo. Moving into the 6th round at pick 199, I was selecting Bryce Love, running back from Stanford. He would be and offer the home run hitter ability for this running back by committee of Marlon Mack, who's kind of your, I guess, bell cow back, if you want to, you know, consider him that much. You have Nyheim Hines as that receiving utility option, Darren Sproles, if you will, for Frank Reich's offense. And then a guy like Bryce Love, I mean, very, very fast. He might be the fastest running back in this year's draft class, but the reason why he's going to slip, had a horrible 2018, tore his ACL real late, like literally could not go any worse. He still is far too talented. Looking at that 2017 college season where he was the most explosive player in college, had 2,100 yards from scrimmage and 19 touchdowns. You can't ignore what he brought that year to just say, oh, he's going to go undrafted, or he's not even going to get touched. He's going to go late day 3, and I feel like a team like Indianapolis, who, I mean, if Bryce Love can put all together and develop into a lead back, I mean, Colts still technically need that lead back. I don't know if Marlon Mack did enough last year to prove that, you know, he can be that guy, but, you know, it's Frank Reich. I'm fairly confident that he's going to bring what he took and utilized in Philadelphia with the committee approach to Indianapolis. I don't necessarily think he's looking for a 3-down starter, or else I think they might have been a little bit more aggressive in pursuing Le'Veon Bell. So they're going to stick with this running back by committee, add that home run ability that they, I mean, Marlon Mack's not slow, but he's also not nearly as fast as Bryce Love. Makes just well-rounded. You're going to have every aspect, every style of runner in a committee, which I think is kind of the point. It's kind of what you want to look for in an ideal committee. And then finishing up the draft in the 7th round at 240, I'm selecting Greg Gaines, defensive tackle from Washington. He is a pure run-stuffing defensive tackle. I think he could have a chance to compete for nose tackle 2 on the depth chart. Right now, I think Grover Stewart's really the only kind of, you know, nose tackle that they have, but they have always had a really nose tackle style defensive lineman here in a 4-3. He's a safe player. He has limited upside, but he will play in the National Football League because he is so good at stopping the run. I mean, those players are limited. Those players get incredibly undervalued, but they still have a spot in today's NFL climate. I think a guy like Greg Gaines could challenge to be maybe their future run-stuffing D-tackle. I mean, obviously, we have them getting Jeffrey Simmons at pick 34, but again, long-term, maybe practice squad stash, but he does have really, really good run-stopping ability, one of the better pure run-stuffers in this year's draft class. I think in the round 7, it's a nice little fit there to make the potential final 53 for the Colts. So there you go, guys. That is the 7-round mock draft for the Indianapolis Colts. Colts fans in particular, let me know in the comment section below if you agree or disagree with this mock draft. As always, if you're first time stopping by, don't be afraid to hit that subscribe button, smash the like button if you enjoyed. And until next time, it's C4 saying peace